All right, guys. So, good morning, everybody. Lovely to meet you all. My name is Jacob. I'm a senior digital marketing executive here at Forefront. With me today, I have Harry, who is a digital marketing executive at Forefront. He's going to be demoing some eShop features towards the end of the webinar. And also with me today, I've got a bunch of our customer success team members on the webinar, so they'll be able to answer any questions that you might have. If you do have a question, either stick it in the chat or in the Q&A section, and our team will be here to respond to you. So, let's begin into it. 3 years ago, let's start off with a little story. 3 years ago, my boss set myself and a bunch of the team members a task. He said, I would like you guys to become experts at accessibility. That's exactly what we've done over the last 3 years. We've learned everything there is to know, and today I hope to share some of these tips with you guys. And today we're going to be doing a lot of audience participation. So there's going to be questions popping up. I'm going to be asking questions in the chat, and we're going to be testing if you guys can spot accessibility fails and sort of giving you tips on how to spot them yourselves. So let's get into it. First of all, here's the agenda. So we're going to be going over why accessibility is important. Then we're going to dive into color contrast. We're going to go over accessible text writing, buttons and links, some dark mode tips. Then we're going to play a game, and then Harry is going to demo accessibility features in eShop. Then we're going to have a Q&A towards the end. So if you do have any questions, stick them in the chat or save them towards the end and be answered live. So first of all, accessibility is not optional, no longer optional. People used to think that accessibility is something that is a choice that you can skip past. It is no longer optional. For many of you, WCAG 2.2 is a standard that you must adhere to. The Digital Inclusion Act means that councils must do what they can to produce accessible content. This is implied by the Act's broader goal of ensuring equitable digital access for individuals, which means providing content that is accessible, which includes providing content that is accessible for people with accessibility needs. This is why you must know the basics, and today I'm going to teach you today I'm going to put you in the shoes of your audience. So to start off with, I've got a question to you guys. What percentage of your audience do you think has accessibility needs? This is a little bit generalized, and this will differ from audience to audience, but in general, what percentage of your audience do you think might have dyslexia? They might have issues seeing color, or may have to use a screen reader. Just going to give a few seconds for everyone to answer. You should see a pop-up come up on your screen. You'll be able to answer it there. The answer actually is 20%. So 1 in 5 of your audience has potential accessibility needs. This is why it's so important that we accommodate for accessibility. 20% of your audience might not be able to consume the content that you produce if it is not accessible. We do, for eShop customers, we do help you achieve accessibility and become better at creating accessible content. We do create these reviews where we assess your design and accessibility of your emails. If you would like us to conduct one of these reviews, there will be an opportunity for us to do so in the follow-up. Just reply to the follow-up. There'll be a button in the call to action. Just reply to that form, and we will be able to do one of these reviews for you. Right, so first of all, I'd like to start by showing you 4 pictures. Here we have some M&Ms. I'm going to show you 3 other types of pictures as well. Now, what is the similarities between these pictures? Apart from the fact that they're M&Ms, what is the only similarity between each of these pictures? What do you notice that is carried across? Feel free to throw some answers in the chat or just keep a mental note. But we'll go through it in a second, because this is a very important concept to understand when you're diving into accessibility. Size. The size-wise, they're actually exactly the same. So the size does not differ between photo to photo. So what actually does the M's? No, also the M's are identical. Basically, what actually does differ from each one of these is the contrast ratio. So the dark colors and the light colors. As you can see, the actual color of the M&Ms changes. However, the contrast ratio doesn't. The light colors stay light and the dark colors stay dark. You see here's some of the highlights of the M&M here. That highlight is also visible on the same M&M here, here, and here. However, the hue of the colors, so what the colors actually look like to your eye, that is very different. The reason why I want to show you this, because people who are visually impaired who may struggle seeing color may see in one of these 3 ways. However, they might also see color in different ways. It's very hard to predict how someone who cannot see color accurately actually sees the color. Therefore, let me teach you a tip on how you can create accessible content without having to guess how everyone sees specific colors. So I'm going to show you 3 examples. Here we have a logo, Valour Ipswich County Council. There's 2 other examples as well underneath it. Basically, what the top one is completely accessible and the bottom 2 are not. And the easiest way to create accessible content is actually to assume that everyone sees color in black and white. I'm color confused, so I really can't tell. Matt, I hope do let me know if I am teaching this correctly, and if do let me know if the contrast ratios do impact you and what you can see clearly and you can't see, and you can't see. So that'll be very interesting to know. So as you can see here, I've put these logos in black and white. I've done this to show you that once you remove the color and you only have the shades, this is how you can sort of assume that some people who may have trouble seeing color might see. Therefore, as you can see here, these right here, the logo is literally seeping into the background. It's not clear; it starts to fade out. The same case goes here. Over here, it's very much separated from the background. The background is white, and the foreground is close to black. So let's move on. Here's some more examples of bad for accessibility and good for accessibility contrast ratios. Some of them might actually shock you guys, as some of them are quite close. You'd assume that something like this is pretty close to being accessible. However, actually, it's quite a far amount off. Everything that's considered accessible for WCAG 2.0 with 4.5 to 1 ratio. So as you can see here, we have a 2.39 to 1. So that is 2 points off being accessible for WCAG. Right. I'm going to dive into social icons, and so we'll dive into a concept that many people haven't really heard of. Sometimes I tell people about this, they're like, oh my God, I didn't even realize. So here are your social icons. Here's a typical set of social icons. Obviously, you may be using 3 or 4 icons from this kind of set, but these are sort of the main ones. Now, these icons were designed to be accessible on a white background. They look perfect in a white background. The colors look vibrant. However, when you start to put these in the footer of your website, of your emails, and start placing your brand colors, maybe you have blue brand colors, maybe you have green brand colors, suddenly a few of those logos start to disappear into the background. So if I was to start changing the color on this, as you can see here, this, PowerPoint does sort of make this a bit harder to demonstrate because it adds this little lip around some certain PNGs. If you imagine this was in your email, this WhatsApp icon will be completely disappearing. A slime icon will start to completely disappear as well. And if we change the color to blue, as you can see here, the Skypes, the Vimeo, the Telegram start to disappear more. Then black, as you can see, the X, Threads, and TikTok would still be accessible. However, it's out of the ordinary. Even though they are accessible, due to the insides being complete white, the actual icon seeping into the background makes it look really weird to someone who might struggle seeing that properly. And then also, if we change the color to blue, as you can see, your Facebooks and your LinkedIn start to fade out here. So we want to avoid colors fading out. Right. So inside eShop, you can actually recolor icons very simply inside Smart Editor. So simply click on your social icon set and click from the drop down, and there's plenty of different choices for you to choose from. Moving on, color contrast. This is a major theme of today's webinar, and I'm going to dive in and test you guys heavily on if you can spot accessible or not accessible color contrast. Well, here are some general rules of thumb when we talk about color contrast. Graphical objects, so spaces, buttons, require contrast ratio of 4.5 to 1 in most cases. There is some unique cases where accessibility is questionably talk about font size and things like that, so there is other things to consider. However, large text is mostly 4.5 to 1. There'll be your headings, and your small body text is usually a 7 to 1. So if you're recoloring your body text, make sure it's got a very strong contrast ratio. And moving on, I'm going to ask you guys a question again, and let's see if this one shocks anyone again. So up on the screen, I'm going to ask you a question. What do you think is the average reading age in the UK? So when you send out your content and people read it, what is their understanding age? So far, we have a very interesting mix of answers. Okay, so we're going to dive into this in 1 second. I'm just going to give a few more of you time to answer. We've got everyone answering already. Okay, so I'm sure you guys will be very interested to hear the results of this as well. Okay, so thank you very much to those that have answered. I'm actually going to go tell you, I'm going to try and drag this onto my screen, let's see if you can see this. So I don't know if you can see the average reading age, but 9 years old was answered by 74% of you, 20% of you answered 14 years old, and 6% of you answered 16 years old. And now let's reveal the answer. So actually, the average reading age in the UK is 9 years old. This is why it's so important to make sure that your content is clear, concise, easy to understand, because more of your audience will be able to consume their content, and more of them will be persuaded to action on your content if they understand it. So make sure the biggest percentage of your audience can understand the content they're putting out. So headings and logical reading order. Here are some quick tips to ensure that screen readers take your content in the correct way. So use hashtags correctly and in order. I'll show you an example in the slide in the next slide, and Harry will demo things towards the end as well. However, when you're setting your headings, make sure your first heading is heading 1. And don't have 2 heading 1s in a row. So make sure to also structure your content logically. Don't have heading 1, paragraph, heading 3, heading 1, for example. Imagine someone using a screen reader is consuming your content. So basically read your content like a screen reader would, including the image and link alt text, and see how the content makes sense to you. It is really important to do that. Just make sure that it reads in the way you want it to read when you remove the visual aspect from it. So, and obviously here is the example inside Smart Editor. You just click down and select your heading and paragraph styles. So let's talk about dyslexia for a second. So in the UK, 1 in 10 people have dyslexia. And my girlfriend is one of these people. And before this webinar, I actually showed her an email. And I showed her this email, and I asked her for her opinion on it. Because a lot of times she actually likes to educate me on things that she can't understand, things that stress her out, and things like that. And I showed her this email, and she looked visually stressed out. Even though this email is beautiful from a design standpoint, in the sense that it's accessible, it's got beautiful imagery, and it's got pretty good content on it, actually. I mean, the content is in the content structure is good. The email itself lacks padding. So everything is very close together. It's squashed, and your eyes have to really focus in on reading content. Simply adding a little bit of padding into this email makes it so much easier to read and understand. And your audience will appreciate you for it. It's always better to put in more padding than put in less padding. So let your content breathe, and in that way, more people will understand it. And obviously, if you want to increase padding of any element inside Smart Editor, you can do that inside in the settings panel on the right side. So alt text, what is alt text used for? Many of us believe that it's only used for screen readers, which it's correct. You are correct. It is used by screen readers. Alt text is read out by screen readers. However, it is also used for other reasons. Have you guys ever Googled an image, and the images that you chose, the algorithm probably used the alt text to decide which images to show you, because the images are the best describing factor that the search engine would have of what's in the image. So search engines use alt text to basically help search results. And there's some broken images here. However, I'd also like to note, since most of us are in the public sector in this webinar, this also includes blocked images. So if you have ever received an email on Outlook and your IT team is quite heavy security, you might see some images are blocked. Alt text helps when you can't see the image. Alt text describes what image should be there. So alt text isn't only used for an accessibility reason. It's used for your marketing with search engines, and it's also used for broken images. And of course, you can set alt text inside Smart Editor as well to help describe that to your audience. So descriptive alt text. So let's upgrade alt text for a second. We have alt text. All of us have been told to use alt text for a very long time. However, often this has been a task that in the past has been that chore that no one wanted to do. They sort of, you need to put in alt text. However, you see how important alt text is and all the reasons it's useful. Therefore, put in descriptive alt text. Don't just, let's take this picture of a fish, for example. Don't just say fish or fish in the sea, Because what value does that actually bring to your audience? So the people consuming your content, what value are you bringing with your alt text? Imagine you cannot see the image and the alt text replaces the image. Does your text still make sense with the alt text replacing the image? Does the alt text support the piece of content that you're using the image to support? So make sure to always look at how you're describing what's in the image. Say that it's free. Say the type of fish. Say they're endangered. Say they're swimming in a dirty river. Explain what's going on based on the text that you are writing. So buttons are king. You need to use as many buttons as you can because they really help. They try to move away from using hyperlinks inside body text. It's still okay to do that in many cases. However, buttons are just provide many advantages. Let me get into them now. So your average font size on a mobile is 44 to 72 pixels. Therefore, if you imagine my mouse was my thumb and I was trying to click this link here, imagine I had a large font, or this link, or this text was very small. It's very hard to click between the lines and click on it. However, with a button, not only it's clearer, it's more, it can be more accessible due to actually being a bold sort of cool object. But as well, they get higher click-through rate because people want to click on buttons. It's more of a call to pulling CTA when you have a button instead of a hyperlink. So when you're doing your emails, try to use buttons where possible, as they're more accessible and also they get you higher clicks. When you're using buttons, there is also some accessibility things to consider. So make your buttons descriptive. You do not want to have buttons that say read more and learn more. If you imagine a screen reader is reading through an email that has six read mores on it, that is very hard to decide as to which one to click on and to really think what text was before that, so to decide to click on it. If you have descriptive buttons, view more about fostering on our website. Register for our event on our website. Something like things like that help show where the link is taking people, and that in turn makes it more accessible. Let's dive into hyperlinks for a second. I do want you to try use a button where possible. However, if you must use a hyperlink, I'm going to assume that you're probably going to hyperlink some text. Do hyperlink headings inside your email articles. It's a very useful way for people to click through to your article as well as a button. However, if you're going to hyperlink some body text, make sure to do it in the correct way. Also, be descriptive. Here's an example from WebAIM, who make the contrast checker that we spoke about earlier, and they advise for you to be descriptive with your text. Have a strong contrast ratio. So remember, this has to be over a 7.7 to 1 aspect contrast ratio, and also be descriptive. Make sure they're clickable. So don't do that. Let's not have them unclickable. So make sure to test your emails in dark mode on different clients on mobile because different email clients render emails differently. We have an amazing feature inside eShop called Email Forensics, in which you can test out your emails on over 40 different clients before you send them. This is very useful for dark mode and things such as mobile rendering on different devices, Android devices that you might not always see. And then you can always just do the spine tweaks to make sure your email looks great across as many devices as possible. Talk about dark mode for a second. Here's an example of how different email clients may render emails in dark mode. As you can see, these emails do not look the same, although the content of these emails is the same. Here's another example as well. So that when dark mode flip happens, a lot of colors, many colors in the email may change. Some people who are savvy with their emails may code things into their email for a logo to change on dark mode. However, in many cases, you're stuck with the same image, same logo. As you can see here, this logo completely vanishes into the back. Oh, sorry, wrong mouse. Completely vanishes into the background. However, there is some things you can actually do to prevent that. I'll teach you that today. This is actually a very cool one that many people don't know about. So hopefully you come away from this webinar with a very useful sort of trick that you can do to make sure your logos are dark mode responsive. Here is our beautiful eShop logo. This eShop logo is completely visible on a black background. However, when you if let's say this was to flip back to light mode, or we used a dark let's say we used a dark logo instead in this case, it would completely vanish into the background. So what can you do? Here's a little graphic design hack that your design team could definitely help you out with, and that is to put a outline around your logo. Suddenly, you brought it away from the background. You brought the foreground color away from the background due to having that white little outline. So this, as you can see, is accessible in dark mode. Now, what if I was to suddenly flip the color back to light mode? As you see, the white outline completely vanishes into the white background. This can also be done with other colors. So if you are using this logo inside a footer, and your footer is blue, the blue outline, that matches it, because when you apply it to the background, it will completely fade out against the color. Cool. Okay, let's play a quick game. There's some audience participation. We're going to have 7 questions, and I'm going to test how good the audience is at spotting edits. Okay, so let's jump right into it. We're going to play a game called Accessible or Not. I've created some images where I've put a Lorem Ipsum logo onto a background, and I've had some interesting contrast ratios against the two. So we're going to pop some questions on the screen, and basically everyone just answer as quick as we can on them, because there's a few we need to get through. And basically just, do you think this is accessible? Yes or no? So you should be getting the poll coming through now. Is this an accessible logo on this background? Okay. So we're not all one-sided. There is answers in both columns, by the way. Just good. Okay. So we've had 80% of you answered, and so let's see. Oh, this logo actually is completely not accessible on this background. If you were to make this black and white, both of these colors are more closer to the color white than they are to a black and a white, which you need for a contrast. Which means this logo will completely fade out, and it is an accessibility. It is a contrast ratio of 1.6. 1. All right, accessible or not? Next one. This one is, as you can see, I've really thought about these. Some of these might get a bit harder than the previous ones. So I'm interested to see what you guys think. Oh, wow. We have the most split audience we've had so far. Okay, just gonna wait a few more seconds for most of you guys to answer, but this is very interesting. Okay. Okay, so I think the answers have slowed down now. So we're going to end the poll, and we have a 49 to 51% answer rate, which is absolutely crazy. So that means half of you are correct and half of you are not correct. So I'm going to the answer. This actually is completely accessible. It's 8.89 to 1. Now, the reason why this has tricked you guys, I can explain why your eyes were tricked. Basically, both of these colors, their base hue is sort of turquoisey, bluey in those regions. However, the actual colors themselves, if you were to flip this into black and white, the logo is closer to being a color that's more akin to black, and the background is more closer to a color more akin to white. Therefore, it creates a contrast ratio. So very interesting. So yes, this is completely accessible. All right, we're gonna put up the next one. Next one, we have this lovely salmon color with this gray color logo. And I think I might have had my Zoom pop up here, so let me just move that out of the way, in case you guys could have seen that. Okay. So what do we think? Once again, we have interesting answers. We have some people saying yes, some people saying no. Okay, gonna give 3 more seconds for you to answer. And okay, so 32% of you said yes. Nearly 70% of you, 68%, said no. This logo is actually non-accessible. It is very close to being accessible, however, it is not. So most of you were correct there. All right, next up, we have University of Ipsum. I know you love my creativity with the original logos. University of Ipsum, is this an accessible logo? On question 4, there is 7 total guys, so 3 more after this one. Also, quite a split audience on this one. Very interesting. Okay, 2 more seconds, gonna end at 20. All right, so 55% of you said this is accessible. 45% of you said it is not. The answer, it is. Very close not to being accessible. This is accessible to 4.5 to 1. So a lot of objects, such as buttons, logos, spaces, this would be accessible contrast ratio. Next one. Again, University of Ipswich coming in with the colors. Is this accessible? Yeah, I'm just going to give you guys 5 more seconds to answer. Okay, so we have quite a interesting answer here. I'll tell you why it's interesting. Firstly, 74% of you said yes, and 26% of you said no. Quite a contrast from the last answer, because actually, these are the same exact colors you saw in the previous example, just they're reversed, the top 2 round. So actually, it's the exact same contrast ratio if you were to contrast checker, and yes, it is accessible. It's very interesting that we got different results on essentially the same question. Let me know if you guys, any of you spotted that, by the way. Okay, so we have Lorem Building Society. Accessible or not? Question 6. Okay. A few more seconds for you guys to answer. Okay. 95% of people said yes, and 5% of people said no. That was very confident. Everyone was, even though this is very close not to actually being accessible, it is accessible, but only by 0.14 contrast ratio. So even though it looks heavily accessible, it's very close to towing that line there. Okay, last one. My gecko, Blizzard. It's got beautiful colors on it. Okay, we're pretty one-sided in that one. Absolutely everybody said this is not accessible, and you would be correct. However, this is one I often see when doing reviews. A lot of time there is an inaccessible logo placed in the sky of a picture in a park or something like that. Please remember that your logos, when they're placed on top of pictures, it's very hard to achieve accessibility. You must have a really harsh aspect ratio in order for millions of colors in the picture to be accessible against the foreground color that you're using. So contrast ratio, you can't tell. You cannot test the contrast ratio of this because the contrast ratio of this compared to the blue would be different. Contrast ratio of this compared to this orange would be different. Right, so just to finish off, I'd like to just say a little bit. Whenever you are creating content, you must consider how 100% of your audience consumes your content. Imagine you had one of these accessibility needs that we've spoken about today. You would be disappointed every time an organization ignored your needs, and you would be very pleasantly surprised when an organization makes an effort to accommodate for your needs. So if 1 in 5 of your audience might have that sort of mindset, it's best to provide them with accessible content and they might appreciate you more. So we do have some assets to help you succeed, and we will email these out to absolutely everyone in the follow-up with the recording. So there's a UML accessibility checklist, which gives you a checklist to check all of the accessibility from all of the different things we've spoken about today against your email. We do also have some fantastic blogs on the eShop blog that are about accessibility. So if you have not already signed up to our newsletter, as we do release everything that is important and relevant about accessibility, important updates that you must know on our blog. And I'm actually going to hand over to Harry, who's going to demonstrate some of the features within eShop that you can use to assist with accessibility, whether that's for your users or whether that's for the emails that you create. We have tools that help you win with both. So thank you so much for listening to me. I'm going to hand over to Harry.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you, Jacob. You should now be seeing eShots on the screen. Do you just confirm that, Jacob? Yep, cool. Yeah, so I'm just going to touch on a few things within eShot that can actually help you with succeeding in the accessibility area. To begin, I'm going to start with this little icon in the top right-hand corner, and this is called Userway. And essentially, there's a few things inside here which can help to make eShot itself more accessible, not your emails, but just the look of eShot itself. And there's a few different options inside of here, and some that might be more useful to you. So just to cover a few of the key ones, we've got bigger text. And as I click on this, you'll see the page essentially just zooms in a little more every time I click on this icon. We've got text spacing, which again, the more I click this, the more spacing there is in between the words. And we've also got line height, which again increases the spacing in between the words. We can see the menu down on the left-hand side becomes quite stretched out the more I zoom in. And finally, one of the other more important ones is the dyslexic friendly font. And you'll see when I click this, the font of the entire page just completely changes to this friendly font that is friendly for dyslexic. One that I'm going to start with and use for today's session is the cursor. And if I click on this, you'll see I actually have this bigger cursor, so it just makes it easier to see where you're pointing. And obviously, for the purpose of a demo, makes it easier to see where I am pointing my cursor. But there are a few different options in here as well, such as like a reading mask. So I'm going to switch back to the big cursor and jump into an email design. And within this design, you'll actually see there's a few different headings and buttons that I've labeled as inaccessible and a few that I've labeled as accessible as well. And you may or may not know that there is an accessibility preview feature within eShot. To access this, just use the preview button on the top. And you're probably familiar with this page to send tests and stuff, but you'll see on the right-hand side, there's an accessibility tab here. And you'll see that it's flagged to me that I have 5 instances that are failing for color contrast within my design. Now that's all well and good telling me that there's issues there, but how can I go about fixing these issues? You see here, there's this little highlight button. So if I click onto this, you see these areas that are flagged as inaccessible have actually had a red border put around them, whereas the ones that are accessible have not. And again, obviously this is here, so it's to flag to you to then go and fix them. So how can you go about doing that? Obviously Jacob's touched on the color contrast already, but you'll see here there's a little details link. And upon clicking on this, it opens up a page that gives you a little bit of detail about the error, and there's also a built-in color contrast checker. So what I'm going to do is jump back to my eShot design and take one of these inaccessible colors and copy the hex value for that and paste it back into here, and we'll see the blue changes to the exact same. And again, we can see this is a fail for WCAG AA. So what I'm going to do is try and get a blue that is as close as possible to this color that actually passes. So what I'm going to do to get that is just adjust the lightness and make it slightly darker, a little bit at a time, and eventually we'll see that this does turn into a pass for small text. So what I'm going to do now is copy this hex value and paste it back into my button. And I'm going to save that design and preview it again. Now, when I head back to the accessibility page, you'll see that my instances of 5 has dropped down to 4. And if I highlight them again, the button is now being flagged as accessible because there's no border around it. So that's the accessibility checker. It's just a really handy way of checking that your text, such as the headings, buttons, and even body text, is all accessible within your design. So as always, as Jacob's touched on, we recommend you always test your emails before you send them out. And you can do so by previewing it and obviously testing like you usually do, but also do double check this accessibility tab to ensure that everything is WCAG AA before you send it out. So I'm going to jump back into my eShot design now and touch on a few of the areas that Jacob had briefly covered. So I'm going to start with headings. So obviously within this email, I've got a few different headings, and obviously the first one being this. And we'll see here that it's actually labeled as a heading 1 already, and Jacob showed the drop down here. So I can change this to a heading 2, 3, 4, 5, or 6 if I wanted to. But it's important to follow a structure of 1, 2, 3, and don't jump from 1 straight into a heading 3. And you'll see within this design, my next heading is a heading 2, and the one after that is a heading 3. So again, it's just important to ensure your headings follow the 1, 2, 3 structure, and you don't jump from heading 1 straight into a heading 3. Reason being, it's important for screen readers. Some people that are using a screen reader, it will actually jump from heading to heading. And for example, if I label this as normal text, one changes the size of the text, but also this will now not be picked up by a screen reader as it's not a heading. I'm just going to change that back to heading 1. Next, I'll cover off the alt text. So within any design, your images and videos, you are able to add alt text. So if I click down onto the video that was in the example, we'll see here I've got some alt text set of what the video will show you. So it's this video here. It's just a little walkthrough of eShot. And again, it's important to make sure your alt text is descriptive. So for this one example, we've got the International Women's Day email library emails. Next, we've got social icons. So as Jacob mentioned, the social icon colors are designed to be on a white background. Now here I've gone with a blue branded color, and you can see that the LinkedIn and Facebook logos don't actually look that great. So you can change these. Again, click on the social icons within your email, and you'll be able to change the size as well as the colors of the logos. So within here, there's a few different options. So you've got black logos, gray logos, whites, and also a few different variations, so circles and squares. And you can also add custom icons if you wanted to completely change these colors for yourself. Finally, I'm going to touch on the email forensics tool that Jacob mentioned. So I'm just going to jump into an example I've prepared for this email. And you'll see here, I've got all these previews loaded for this email. And just to give you a few examples, if I click onto the Microsoft one, it's going to tell me what this email is going to look like in Microsoft Outlook 2019. And also there's a few different options for mobile clients. So this is probably more useful than the desktop view. And you can click into here again, and you'll see what this email looks like on different mobile devices. And this is handy just to ensure that your content stacks correctly and it's mobile responsive. Now, finally, as Jacob said, dark mode, there are a few dark mode previews in here as well that you can load. And so again, if we have a look at the Outlook one, you'll see that this logo here actually isn't too accessible. And as Jacob mentioned, we could put a white border around this logo, which will blend into my background when it's in light version. But when it is in dark mode, it will stand out on the black background. And to access this tool, if I jump out of my design, you can go to Analytics and Email Forensics on the left-hand side. And so those are all the things within eShot that you can use to both make the platform itself more accessible for you and also your emails more accessible for your recipients.
Also remember, if you're ever confused about anything accessibility related, if you're an eShot customer, the live chat is always there. You can always send us a message, and in 2 minutes we'll be there to help you out and answer any questions that you might have. Okay, the questions that seem to have come. Therefore, I'm going to call it here. I'll say thank you to absolutely everyone that watched today's webinar. I hope you learned something new. Let us know if you'd like us to do more like this in the future. I would love to jump on another webinar and say hello to everyone next time. And yeah, thank you to the teams. Harry, thank you.
Yeah, thank you everyone for attending.
Thank you, Gareth. Really appreciate that, everybody. Thank you. It was so lovely talking to you guys today. Thank you everyone for the audience participation. It was really nice seeing all those percentages just instantly shoot out. We will circulate the recording of this webinar as well as all the useful assets that will help you guys achieve accessibility when you're creating content. So I would like to wish you guys all a good day. I'd like to wish everyone a great rest of your day. Thank you so much for watching this webinar. My name is Jacob. Harry, say bye-bye.
Yeah, bye everyone. Thank you.
Thank you everyone.